Diyos maray na aldaw sa Indugabos. I am Miss Evelyn E. Melia, a Doctor of Philosophy Language Education student of Sorsogon State College and a senior high school teacher of Sorsogon National High School in Sorsogon City. This is a short presentation of my case study entitled Audio-Aided Story Reading, an Effective Tool for Enhancing Vocabulary and Word Recognition. Shown in this slide is the main building of the chosen locale of the study, Sorsogon National High School. It is considered to be the biggest secondary public school in Sorsogon City with a total population of 2,484 senior high school students in school year 2019 to 2020. Its senior high school program includes academic and TVL tracks. Filipino and Bicol are the primary languages spoken by the majority of the students, while English is not their first language. Reading is one of the most basic skills that learners should have at the end of basic education. The educational system across the globe is, however, confronted with a growing number of non-readers. In the Philippines, Dumlao reveals that reading difficulty has been reported to be a problem not only among the learners in the elementary level but also in the high school level. Orneda reports that the Philippines ranked lowest out of 79 countries in reading comprehension in the 2018 Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, and it was found out that there are recorded cases of struggling readers in the locale of the study. This study was conducted to determine the effectiveness of audio-aided story reading in enhancing word recognition and vocabulary skills of a grade 11 learner. It specifically aimed to determine the reading profile of the learner along word recognition and vocabulary, evaluate the improvement of the learner after using the audio-aided reading material, and describe the behavior of the learner while using the audio-aided reading material. The teaching reading material used in this study was reading while listening. Reading while listening is a modeling procedure that has been found to be effective for improving oral reading accuracy and fluency, as well as comprehension. Reading while listening is anchored on the principle and practice of second language acquisition, since English is the second language in the Philippine context. It is specifically framed on Krashen's monitor model, or balanced input-output based practice for second language acquisition. Krashen proposed that in order for second language acquisition to take place, input, also known as the teaching reading material, must be comprehensible, interesting, and/or relevant to the learners, not grammatically sequenced, and provided with sufficient quantity. These criteria must be met in order to prepare the learners to an output-based practice. The qualitative research design used in this study was case study. It is an in-depth examination of a particular case or several cases. To determine the reading profile of the learner, a pre-test was administered. The voice of the learner was recorded while she was reading 15 sentences lifted from the local tale, The Legend of Juan Mansilla, written by Sorsogon local writers. Afterwards, she was asked to answer a 7-item vocabulary pre-test. The audio-aided story was personally recorded by the researcher. The story was divided in 5 chunks and was listened to for 5 consecutive days. The learner followed along in reading the tale while reading and listening to the recorded tale from a cellular phone. The learner was then asked to reread the tale, The learner continued reading the next part the following day and rereading the same part until all the parts of the story was read on the fifth day. This is done to sustain the interest of the learner and to provide sufficient quantity. On the fifth day, the student was asked to take the post-test. The voice of the learner was likewise recorded during the post-test. The participant in this case study is an 18-year-old female grade 11 TVL cookery student. The researcher has noticed her difficulty in oral reading when she was asked to read a paragraph during one of the classroom sessions. She appeared to be very anxious and uncomfortable while reading the passage. Her voice was too soft, but her inability to pronounce a number of words in the passage was very evident. It was difficult for her to read some of the words in the given passage and would read them in a very slow rate. This table shows that the reading profile of the learner is in the frustration level. Mispronunciation is the most committed miscue of the learner with 43 markings, and insertion is the second most committed miscue with 13 markings. Other recorded miscues are omission with 8 markings, substitution with 7 markings, and reversal with 1 marking. Since the number of words in the passage is 223 and the total marked miscues is 72, this yields a reading score of 68% in which the reading profile of the learner is categorized to be at the frustration level. This slide shows that the learner only achieved 2 correct answers out of the 7-item vocabulary pre-test. Her score yields a low score of 29% in vocabulary. Similar to her reading level in word recognition, her vocabulary score is also categorized in the frustration level. Shown on this slide are the words mispronounced by the reader during the pre-test. The reader finds the reading material so difficult that she cannot successfully respond to them. Flippo 2014. This explains the struggle of the reader to produce the correct pronunciation of the words in the passage. Most of the mispronounced words are not familiar to the learner, as likewise shown in the result of the vocabulary pre-test. Word recognition and vocabulary are extremely necessary in reading comprehension, and that's according to Alls in 1982. The inability of the learner to understand and recognize several words in the passage is an indication of poor or no comprehension. This slide shows the vocabulary pretest score of the learner. Given the result of the vocabulary pretest, it could be said that the learner does not yet have communicative competence that could equip her to understand and learn other content areas. K-12 English Curriculum 2016. Her reading problem is also an indication that she is not equipped with skills necessary in order to succeed in life. Ellie believes that a rich vocabulary is an important attribute of success in any walks of life. This slide shows the improvement of the learner after using the audio-aided story reading. Mispronunciation was still the most committed miscue with 28 markings. It was followed with miscues on insertion with 13 markings, substitution with 6 markings, and omission with 3 markings. It could be noted that the miscues committed in mispronunciation decreased from 78 to 28 markings. Insertion remained at 13 markings, substitution from 7 to 6, omission from 8 to 3, and no miscue was committed on reversal. The overall decrease in the committed miscues was 22 markings. The oral reading score of the learner was 78%. Though it increased by 10%, it remained in the frustration level before and after the intervention. This slide shows that the learner only attained 3 correct answers out of the 8-item vocabulary post-test. The result shows that her score is 1 point higher compared to the result of her pre-test. The findings showed that there was a 10% improvement in the reading score of the learner along word recognition and a minimal increase of 9% increase along vocabulary. Though administered for 5 consecutive days, this is an indication that audio-aided story reading is an effective tool for enhancing word recognition and vocabulary. Shown on this slide are the mispronounced words of the learner during the post-test. From Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, Woodall asserts that the audio recording may have functioned like a more knowledgeable teacher, aiding the reader to decode the text to achieve a higher level of reading fluency than he or she would otherwise be capable of doing independently. The audio-aided device may have assisted the learner in pronouncing the words that she was not oriented with. Shown on this slide is the vocabulary post-test score of the learner. The overall result signifies that the teaching reading material has met the interest and reading preference of the learner. The device used in the audio-aided story reading was a cellular phone popularly used by 21st century learners. The reading material used was a local tale which helps in teaching literary, cultural, and higher order thinking aspects. Henning believes that culture should be part of classroom instruction, and literature is one feature in the cultural domain that provides added value beyond the level of language acquisition. Learning language through text types and literary appreciation exposes learners to different cultures of the world, including one's culture, particularly Sorsogon culture. It was observed that the learner demonstrated behaviors of a beginning reader. The learner manifested behaviors such as lack of expression while reading, hardly audible voice, little or no method of analysis, and struggles in pronouncing unfamiliar words. These behaviors could be associated with poor reading habits, hence the lack of exposure to English words. Based on the findings of the study, the grade 11 learner has poor word recognition and vocabulary skills, which equals to poor reading comprehension. The learner does not have the communicative competence to learn content areas in senior high school. Anchored on Krashen's monitor model of second language acquisition, the audio-aided story reading has effectively enhanced the word recognition and vocabulary skills of the learner. The behavior of the learner is a manifestation that the learner does not have a good reading habit. Given that the learner is categorized as a beginning reader, the learner cannot independently become a fluent reader. She needs the support from literate adults and others. They need to extend their support in order to assist the learner towards reading independence. Continuous intervention, not only on the part of the teachers, but also on the part of literate parents, siblings, and others, would be necessary towards the reading success of the learner. A similar reading pretest may be proactively conducted before admitting senior high school students, and related studies be conducted among other grade 11 students who are struggling readers in the locale of the study. The teaching reading material that was employed in this study is in response to the key features of the K-12 basic education program, which include ICT integration and curriculum contextualization as per DepEd Order 35 Series of 2016. It has a direct impact to ECARP, Every Child a Reader program, which aims to make every Filipino child a reader and a writer at his or her grade level. That's according to Phil Erie 2018.